Okay, now there are two more things. I'll come back to these two things a bit later. So now we'll try to proceed with the receipts. Receipts. If you want, you can even create a receipts in batches. But again, if you try to create a batches, it's the same story. You need to generally, but we use this particular batch functionality only for the automatic receipts. Again, you enter your batch name, batch number, and then click on receipts. It will take you to the same receipt screen, which is this screen. Okay. So first thing is you need to select the receipt method. So what is the receipt method? Do you remember the receipt method, whatever we have created just now?
Reliance.
Reliance ICICI Bank current. Okay. So Reliance ICICI Bank current, from the naming convention itself, it should give you a clear picture that this particular receipt is created against that ICICI Bank current account. Okay. And receipt number is basically a kind of a check number. So when you get a receipt from your customer, in the case of via check, you need to mention that particular check number. So check number could be, if it is a cash receipt, then just enter some dummy number, or if you are following a kind of some register, enter that particular number here. Okay, there is a purpose why we are not using the automatic receipt number generation functionality. Okay, the reason being, for all the manual receipts, you do not want to use your automatic receipts number functionality, because especially in the case of check, because it's the same screen through which you create your manual receipt as well as check receipts. If it's a check receipt, ideally you should use your check number as your receipt number. And if it's a manual receipt, just put any kind of a dummy number. Maybe you can, sometimes some customers have seen that invoice number they use as a receipt number just for their reference purpose. Or you can use some other dummy number. Or you can use a sequence of like your customer number underscore your invoice number. That is the invoice number against you will be entering a receipt. But there could be a scenario wherein you can create one receipt against multiple invoice numbers. So you need to follow proper naming convention here. Receipt amount, what is the amount of the receipt? So let us assume I'll say 15,000. Okay, so as soon as I tab it, this is called receipt header. Okay, this is another part of the receipt, and then when you click on apply, so if you remember in AP we got invoice header, invoice lines, and invoice distribution. So more or less even here it's not exactly the same thing. You got a kind of a receipt header and this particular part, and when you click on apply, that's where you select the actual invoice number against which you are applying this particular receipt. Okay, so as soon as I enter my receipt amount and tab it, here you can see there is something called unidentified. Now try to save this. Okay. So now what we are saying is there could be a scenario wherein we have entered only up to that this particular stage, saved it, closed it, and then we left this particular receipt as is. So if you leave this particular receipt as is, it goes to something called unidentified receipt. So we have got a concept of unidentified receipt. So when you create a receipt without mentioning any invoice number and customer number, then that is called unidentified receipt. There could be, I mean, in general, 95% of the cases you will not have this kind of scenario, because whenever you get a amount, then you know like from which customer you received the particular amount and against which invoice number. But there could be some scenarios in a large organizations, there could be a scenarios where a check is directly deposited by some customer in your bank account without giving any proper reference number. If you look at your bank statement, you will just see the amount, but you do not know the customer name, or you do not have the customer number or invoice number, because somehow the what you call customer made a mistake that when he is actually depositing a check, somewhere in the reference number he did not mention those details. Then what will happen is, if you download your bank statement from your bank, you will be able to see a receipt of 15,000, but you do not have the background details. In order to get the background details, you need to call to the bank, and from the bank you need to get the additional information, what exactly is the check and all those other stuff. But it may take a while, it may take 2 days or 3 days, but you do not want to wait that. It is your month end. Okay, so what you do is you just create the receipt in this fashion without entering any other details. So if you leave this particular receipt in this fashion, it goes to something called unidentified receipt. Now you have entered this, save this. Now at this stage, try to run your create accounting and let's see what will be the accounting entry. Okay, so the accounting entry is there are a couple of things. Again, here we are using in general, whenever you create your receipt, the journal entry will be your cash account will be debited and your receivable account will be credited. Okay, but if you are not using, if you are not using a remittance functionality, that is the journal entry, cash account is debited and receivable account is credited. Okay, but again, in that particular scenario where we are not using a remittance functionality, okay, and if it is a scenario of unidentified receipt, okay, you should not be directly crediting your receivable account. Let me just delete this. So this is the normal journal entry when you are not using any remittance functionality. Okay, but in this scenario, we should not credit the receivable account because we have not yet specified any customer name. Am I right? It is still lying in your unidentified receipt. So in this scenario, the journal entry will be instead of unreceivable account, instead of receivable account, it will be unidentified account. Okay. Now let us assume that like after a day or two, you are able to identify the customer. I mean, you made a phone call to the customer, and in the customer, you were able to trace that particular check which was provided by the customer, and you were able to identify the customer. Okay. Then you have entered the customer. Okay. Now save this. Now you can see the amount has moved from unidentified to unapplied. It is unapplied. The reason being now you have identified the customer. So that's the reason why it has moved from unidentified. But it is still says unapplied. The reason why it says unapplied is you have identified the customer, but you have not applied it against any invoice of the customer. So as long as you have not identified or like you have not applied this against any invoice of the customer, it will be in unapplied stage. So at this stage, if you create an accounting entry, so the journal entry will be okay. It will be sorry. You are moving it from unidentified to unapplied, right? So unidentified should be debited. Earlier it was credited, so you should debit that, and unapplied should be credited. Okay. Okay. So you are moving the balance from unidentified to unapplied. Okay. Now again you need to do an analysis because the check may not have the actual reference number of the invoice. Then again you make a phone call to the customer and ask him like, hey, you made a mistake, you did not specify proper details when you are giving a check. Can you let me know against which invoice you have actually made this particular payment of 15,000? Okay, and you got to know that particular invoice details. Then you click on apply, to, and you select the corresponding invoice. So maybe this invoice.
Arvind, can we buy for some time? Because I want to understand uh, from unapplied and unidentified scenarios, right? Let's assume that during my month-end process, I got this scenario. So, what is the typical activity of the uh, the clerk or whoever is entering these receipts? How they want to close that month? Because
Okay,
if
so
the amount is substantial in terms of unidentified kind of receipts or unapplied kind of receipts, they cannot obviously close that month and proceed further for the next month, right?
Okay, so from a system perspective, there is nothing which will stop you from closure of the period, because either it could be an unidentified status or unapplied status or applied status. Okay, as now we, in this case, as I have applied now invoice, it has now moved from unapplied to applied. Okay, let me just complete this flow, and going back to the accounting entries, now it will move from unapplied to actual receivables. Yeah, unapplied is receivable. Now this is where your receivables account get credited. Okay, so your, if you look at your final entry, again these two got knocked off. So your final entry is again cash account debit, receivable account got credited. But as we have moved through so many different phases like unidentified and unapplied, you got all those entries, but the final entry is that. Okay, now coming back to your Niranjan's question, from a system perspective, it will not stop you from closing up the period when you got a lot of unidentified receipts or unapplied receipts. Okay, the reason being, from an accounting perspective, it's not like lying in the air. There are some entries which are getting generated. If it is an unidentified stage, you will be able to see an entry under unidentified, so you can run something called unidentified receipts register. If it is an unapplied, if it is in an unapplied status, you can run your unapplied and unresolved register, which will show you the details. Okay, and when you are doing a final month end, it's up to you, wherein if you want, you can make a phone call to the customers and ask them those details, or that's fine, you can very well make those what you call updates, that is applying of those invoices to the receipts even in the next month also. But if you got some kind of a target saying that you want to close the receivables balance, because as an, I mean, as long as it is sitting under your unidentified and unapplied, your receivables balance will be still show as an outstanding, even though we got some balance here. But if you run some kind of a reports, say aging report, even in the aging reports also, at the end it will show you the details of this unidentified and unapplied. So if your aging report says say 100,000 with an unidentified amount of say 20,000 at the bottom, from your reporting perspective, you need to understand that your net outstanding is only 80,000, not 100,000, because there is an unidentified receipts of 20,000. But there are some accountants who argues that they do not want to see any balance under unidentified or unapplied receipts before month end, and in those cases, obviously you need to follow up with this particular customer. It's only just a phone call to a bank or to a customer. But if you do not have so much time, then you, the only option left is you need to leave that as under unidentified or unapplied. There is no harm in leaving it there. Make sense?
Okay, okay. So it's all under agreement, right? Like if you have an identified or unapplied receipts, and if you mutually understand, like the information might come delay or something like that, or the or accountant is okay to proceed, they can do. System-wise, there is no kind of hiccups to stop the period to close,
Exactly.
right?
Yeah. Some people say feel. Some people will actually run this unidentified or unapplied receipts on a kind of a daily basis and ensure that there are no such kind of receipts lying under unidentified or unapplied. So, but there could be some practical scenarios like you, wherein you are not able to reach bank because of holiday, or you are not able to reach the customer because of various other reasons. Okay, in those cases, you will not have any alternative, just leaving that under unidentified or unapplied, and in the aging report, it will show at the last column. Then, from a reporting perspective, you need to properly adjust. You need to properly get educated that my aging report shows so and so amount, along with this my unidentified or unapplied amount. So I should properly read that statement in such a way that my net outstanding is your total outstanding balance minus this your unidentified or unapplied. Because in a layman terms, unidentified or unapplied is just from Oracle terms, but it is a cash which you have already received, but we are not able to apply it against the corresponding customer invoice. Make sense?
Yeah. Yeah, yeah, got it, Arvind. Just want to, can you brief a little bit idea about the above in the same screen, right? There is a section of customer bank.
Mm-hmm.
So, is this section will populate when you have a real remittance cash clearing process in the cash management?
No, no, no. So this particular customer bank is used in only those scenarios if you are using your auto log box. Okay, and generally the auto log box is a kind of scenario wherein your customer has made the funds transfer. Oh, sorry, it will not be auto logbox. I can give you an example. There is something called, there is something called, I have seen, I think in one of the client. Okay, there are some scenarios wherein customer gives you a kind of a static instant. Customer gives you his bank account details. Okay, when customer gives his bank account details, you can create those customer banks. So remember, you have seen internal banks, supplier banks. Internal banks are created in cash management, and the supplier banks are created in the. Where are supplier banks created? Can anybody throw some light on that? Do you guys remember that? Supply.
IBY.
Both
Sorry?
of them are in cash management, right,
No.
Arvind?
Cash management is only for internal banks. That is our bank account. Okay. As far as the external banks are concerned, which are nothing but your customer banks and supplier banks, they are created in the appropriate masters. So supplier bank can be created in the supplier master. That is, if you go to your supplier screen, within the supplier screen, there is a tab for the bank accounts, and there you can create your supplier bank. Similarly, for the customer banks, you can go to the customer master, and within the customer master you should be able to create your customer bank account. And the reason why we store your customer bank account details, in the case of AP, you store your supplier bank account. The reason being, when you do an electronic funds transfer, if the supplier has already created his given his bank account details to us, you can do an electronic funds transfer to his bank account. Like, supplier has given his bank account details to us, you have maintained the particular bank account details in the supplier master, and when you run your AP payment process, okay, you at the end of the payment process, you generate a file. The file contains the details of the supplier name, supplier number, invoice number, and the supplier bank account, and you generate that particular file and give it to your bank. So in your case, you give it to your ICICI bank, and ICICI bank will do a disbursements of the funds to the corresponding supplier bank accounts based on the bank account details available. Similarly, in the case of customer, in the case of AR, let us assume you have an agreement with the customer. Okay, you get the customer bank account details, you store the customer bank account details in your customer master, then you create something called automatic receipts. You generate an automatic receipts file along with the customer bank account details. You give that particular file to your banker. Okay, and banker will get the funds from the corresponding customer bank account. So that is where these customer banks are useful. So it's kind of a standing instruction. You already get a standing instruction from a customer, say, and you get the customer bank account details. You store the customer bank account details in your customer master. You generate the file. Okay, through automatic receipts, you can, similar to AP, when you use your automatic receipt, there is something called formatting file. You generate the file, and the file contains the customer bank details. You give that bank details to your bank, and banker will get the funds from the corresponding customer bank. There is already instructions given to the your banker saying that as soon as you send this particular file with the customer banks, you get the funds from the corresponding customer bank. Okay.
So if I understand it correctly, Arvind, the information is already available with us before I create my receipt from the
Yeah.
customer perspective, right?
Yes.
So I can only choose those values when I am actually keying in this receipt.
Yes.
Okay. So, but again, my point is the clearing process is not yet configured in my site where the receivable act is happening,
So what clearing?
right?
No. What clearing are you referring to? Are you referring to bank cash?
Bank clearing. Bank clearing.
Okay. So are you referring to cash management bank reconciliation?
Yes, because let's assume scenario that I only have the receivable logging system, which is using by Oracle. Okay,
Okay.
so I have receipt, and I'm simply creating the receipt in Oracle ERP.
Okay.
And in terms of bank clearing process and the follow up with the customer whether the bank is credited or not, that's out of scope from the Oracle system perspective.
Mm-hmm.
So that if that is a setup, if I'm keying in the receipt, I know anyway. Maybe they have given the information about cash bank name, account number, and everything. I can simply choose that values in this screen,
Mm-hmm.
right?
Mm-hmm.
Contained in my customer master.
Uh-huh.
But how it actually complete the end-to-end flow of receipt to cash flow? because as I don't have the connection.
Okay, I think you are mixing up everything and you are getting confused. Let me make it clear. For the time being, keep cash management aside. Okay.
Mm-hmm.
Okay. So this is a scenario wherein, okay, you are creating an automatic receipt. Okay, I mean, or even you are creating a kind of a manual receipt. You are choosing your customer bank account, but in a real life scenario you generally use the customer bank account when you are creating an automatic receipts. Okay, when you are creating an automatic receipts, you generate an automatic receipts. Okay, take an example. Our customer is a Raymond's suitings, right? Our customer is Raymond suitings. Okay, Raymond suitings, we have got a lot of open invoices. Okay, and we have an agreement with the Raymond Suitings. Okay, where Raymond Suiting has already provided his customer bank account details. Raymond Suiting says that he has a bank account in say IDBI Bank. Okay, he has provided his bank name, bank branch name. Okay, bank account number, and couple of other stuff like IFSC number and other stuff which we maintain your bank account details. Okay, and then he has given a standing instruction to us saying that you generate your automatic receipt process once in a week. Okay, pick up all the outstanding invoices, okay, for that particular week, and generate a file. Within your file you can use your my customer bank account details. Okay, send that particular file to your bank, which is ICICI Bank. In our case, we are generating automatic receipts in Oracle AR, generating in receipts file which contains the details of the amount as well as the customer name, number, bank, customers bank name, number, bank account, IFS account, and other stuff. Sending that particular file to your banker, your ICICI Bank. ICICI Bank is ICICI Bank is processing that particular file, getting the funds into our bank account. That's it. Now we are not talking about any cash management bank reconciliation process. That's it. You have created a receipt in your bank in your AR. Okay, but you have created. See, if you do not send that particular file to your bank account or to your banker for processing of the particular file, whatever the receipt you have created is kind of a dummy receipt. Am I right? Because unless and until you give that particular file to the customer your banker, and unless and until he process that particular file, you will not get the funds into your bank account. Am I right? So what you're doing is, from an AR perspective, you are creating a receipt and closing up the AR invoice, saying that the amount is received, but it is not really received. The real receipt happens only once you send the file to your banker and banker process that particular file. So that is the scenario wherein you use your customer bank account details. Okay, that's one thing. Now coming back to your cash management. For as far as the cash management is concerned, forget about all these bank account details. Cash management, what we are saying is, you got a check from your customer. Again, there are various scenarios. I'm just taking one simple scenario as an example. You got a check from your customer. Customer has did not give your customer bank name, bank branch name, account number, and you did not maintain your customer bank details in your customer master. He has just given a check to you. Okay, you have created an AR receipt in your AR module. Okay, you okay, from an AR perspective, you have as soon as your check is received, you created an AR receipt. And what you do, you physically take that particular check, go to the bank, deposit that particular check into your bank account, or you do your mobile deposit or whatever it is. Okay, and then bank, your ICICI Bank will take that particular check. It will go to your Reserve Bank of India or some other bank. I mean, clearing process. We are not getting into the bank clearing process. Okay, it will get that particular check honored, and it will get the funds deposited into your bank account. Okay, and there could be some scenarios. The reason why we use this cash management bank reconciliation process is, you have received a check for say 10,000 rupees. You deposit that particular check into your bank account. But when you give that particular 10,000 rupees to your bank, your ICICI Bank, it could be say outstation check. Instead of crediting 10,000 rupees in your bank account, your bank may credit only 9,950. 50 rupees, they would have actually taken 50 rupees as the bank charges and credited only 9,950. Okay, so these kind of things will come into picture when you do a bank reconciliation statement. So when you do a bank reconciliation statement, what you are doing is, you get the total bank statement from your bank, load that particular bank statement in your cash management module, which contain details of all your receipts, payments, and all other stuff, and try to match those lines bank statement lines with your corresponding subledgers, your AP and AR, because whatever you are creating in your AP and AR, okay, as far as this check is concerned, you in your AR it is showing 10,000 rupees, but by the time it has went to the bank, deposited it, what do you call, the banker has created only 9,950. So this will be actually, now when you do a bank reconciliation, this will be an unreconciled line, because your cash management shows 9,950, your AR shows only, your AR shows 10,000, but whereas cash management shows 9,950. So that's where you get into kind of a reconciliation, and then you realize, oh, if bank has charged 50 rupees, now I need to pass an entry for the bank charges, debiting bank charges 50 rupees and credit bank account by 50 rupees. So those are the kind of that is just one example. So those are the different kind of scenarios wherein you want to use your bank reconciliation functionality in cash management. And there could be other scenario also. You take a check, you got a check, you have created, as soon as you got a check, you created in your AR receipt. Okay, you have taken that particular check to the banker for depositing. Okay, for some reason, the customer who has given you a check do not have a balance in his bank account, and then obviously your customer, your check will dishonor. Am I right? That's a normal scenario. So when the check gets dishonor, you will not get the funds into your bank account. Your AR is showing 10,000 rupees, but your bank account statement do not show any balance there. So again, that is a reconciling item. Then you realize that, oh, customer is not, the customer check has got dishonored. What you do, you go to, when you do your automatic reconciliation, that will become a kind of an unreconciled statement. What you do, then you get into the what do you call, the reasons why that is an unreconciled item, and then you come to know that yes, that particular check is not cleared in your bank statement. So that means now what you need to do, you need to reverse the AR receipt, so that your invoice becomes again outstanding, so that again you can follow up with the customer asking for money. Is that clear, Niranjan?
Yeah.
Okay, so there are various such scenarios. I don't want you get confused with so many different things, so I'm just explaining you the appropriate or couple of such examples.
Just to make a point in terms of nutshell, right? The cash management reconciliation statement from bank will be issued only when from receivable clerk given back, I mean, extracted the receipts whatever he entered and against to the customer and the customer related bank information to the subsequent our own banker, right? Then only they will issue reback, they will send kind of an acknowledgement to it to reconcile from a receivable clerk perspective. Is that correct?
Okay, so coming back to that, I'll just reframe that. So this is a receipt wherein we got 15,000 rupees via this particular check number from this particular customer. Okay, we have deposited this 15,000 rupees in this bank account. These bank account details are coming from this receipt method. So this is our bank account. Okay, now here there is nothing called customer bank. Okay, I deposited this particular check in my bank account, and that particular check we have given it to the ICICI Bank. We have taken the physically taken the particular check to ICICI Bank and deposited the particular check in our bank account, and the ICICI Bank has gone to the customer bank to get the funds, but customer do not have a bank account. Sorry, customer do not have funds in his bank account. The check will be dishonored. So if the check is dishonored, so that means you will not have a 15,000 rupees in your bank statement. Am I right? Because the funds
Yes.
are not credited. But from your AR perspective, you have already created a receipt for 15,000. So ideally, what you need to do in that particular scenario, you need to reverse this particular receipt. So reversal is also one of our topic. So if in order to reverse this particular receipt, what you need to do is, in this once you bring up that particular receipt number, so you need to click on this reverse button, and these two category, what is the reversal category and reversal reason, are this just kind of an what you call reporting purpose. You do not have any other functionality, so just say reverse payment, and there is a lookup wherein you can store these categories and reasons, payment reversal. So you can run some kind of a reports based on this particular reversal reasons. So click on reverse. Okay, now amount is reversed. So now if you go back and check that invoice against which we have created this particular receipt, that will now become again outstanding because the receipt is reversed. Okay, here you can see the status reversed.
Okay.
Now in this case, the aging will start from now on, or previous aging it will continue, Arvind, from the due date?
Aging will be still from a due date. The reason being, the receipt is actually dishonored. The check whatever he has given is dishonored. So that means he is still outstanding. See, take an example. Your customer is we have created an invoice for the customer on 1st of September. It is due on 1st of October. Okay, on 1st of October, he has given us a check for say 10,000 rupees. We have created a receipt. We have gone to the bank and deposited the check, and we came to know that on 3rd of October the check is dishonored. So that means again you need to start a follow up. So again you can say that this particular customer is outstanding for more than 30 days, or like he is outstanding for 33 days. He's outstanding from 1st of October, or rather you can say he is overdue from 1st of October.
Okay, yeah, yeah.
So for the reversal, again you need to do an accounting, or you can run your create accounting, or you can go to that particular receipt and click on tools create accounting. So there will be reversal entries which will be generated. So depending on whether it's an unidentified receipt or an unapplied receipt or applied receipt, there will be accounting entries, reversal accounting entries, which system is going to create.